Hello, everybody. I'm Zack Navarra, and this is the Skyline View podcast. We're back with another episode of TSV Politics, where we talk about the congressional 15th district in California and the upcoming June 7th primary. Today, we are here with Supervisor David Canepa. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks so much, Zach. It's great to be here with you.
So let's dive right into it. Why don't you tell us about why you're running and why you decided to try to run for Congress?
Well, look, I'm a fourth generation San Mateo County resident. My parents, my dad was a chauffeur. Both my parents worked at Bank of America. My dad was a bank manager. I really care about this county. I mean, I care about it because I grew up here, went to school here. So it's in my DNA. And so having the ability to serve as mayor, then on the board of supervisors during a pandemic is really, really important. And so I think just being from here, understanding the various issues that the average person goes through, right? And I think that's the reason why I'm running, is really to bring a local voice, San Mateo County, and we do have a portion of San Francisco, but a local voice to Washington, D.C., which is so desperately needed right now in this time of crisis.
So expand on that. Why do we need a local voice in Washington right now?
Well, look, I mean, I think, there's so much divisiveness. There's so many different things that are taking place. We have people in Congress, if you can imagine, Zach, that didn't believe that the insurrection happened. Some of them believe that vaccines don't work. We're beginning to find out just as recently today, Judge, if you can imagine it, Judge Clarence Thomas's wife was working with the chief of staff of Trump, encouraging them relative to the insurrection. So it's a place that definitely needs healing. It's a place that I want to go to and basically make sure, take what I've learned from the pandemic, right? So what we've learned is, the county is one of the most vaccinated in the state of California, maybe the United States. How do we limit these disparities? So if you're someone in Hillsborough who has Wi-Fi, why aren't you getting the same Wi-Fi coverage if you live in Daly City and East Palo Alto? And so I think all these issues, especially around the pandemic, it makes me very, very different than my competitors, dealing with how do you get people vaccinated? How do you get people tested? How do you make sure you take care of those at the time? Remember those long food lines, food insecure. And so the county played a life-saving role in people's lives. Public health. You remember, Zach, when we said so affectionately, wear your damn mask.
Right.
And, all these sort of issues we were dealing with, crisis, how as a county, how do we move our regional operations center? How do we do all these things? And I think it's that experience of dealing with a crisis and taking the leadership with others. I can tell you, some in this race, they hid. I don't remember with a select few of us who really took on this issue of solving solutions to COVID. Some of them, they ran and they hid, or they were afraid, because by doing that, that's a safe position. By doing nothing, it's a safe position. And that's why I'm running for Congress, is to really take on issues that are important. So we talk about Medicare for all. Your checkbook should not dictate whether you get health care. And how did I see that? How did we see that? They tried to close the hospital that I was born in, and that serves 170,000 residents in the area, because a billionaire who actually owns the Lakers, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, they didn't want anything to do with healthcare anymore. And so the county came in, we're able to save this hospital and give people healthcare. So Medicare for all in the United States, last year, 20 hospital bankruptcies, rural and urban. So we really need to look at healthcare. And Zach, I've been in this county I know you think I'm 21. I'm 46 now. But I've seen what's happened to friends who couldn't stay here, friends who are now living in places, and there's nothing against Mountain House. It's a lovely place. But I think what we all aspire to do and what drives my work is to make sure that people who are able to grow up here, if they choose, should be able to stay here. And so focusing on housing, my work with ABAG and the creation of housing, my work on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which deals with transportation, all these sort of experiences lead me to a point where I think I'm ready to serve day one in Congress and to take those experiences, lived experience as well as policy experiences, to make sure that the county that I grew up in, that we grew up in, is much, much better than it is now in terms of equity.
So on the topic of equity, and you brought up billionaires, what role do you think billionaires and big money plays in our election process?
Look, I'm the only candidate, Zach, only candidate. Can you imagine this? The only candidate that is not taking corporate PAC money. And I'm not going to call anyone out. Assemblymember Mullen, he takes PAC money like no one can believe it. It's not just because I said it. It's actually documented. It's documented. If you go to the Forms 460, whether it's Genentech, whether it's Jillian, he takes so much. I forgot a big company. He takes Walmart money. And so these are things that I'm making up. I'm not fact check me. They're public records. And so we have said that we're not going to take corporate PAC money. And the reason we're not going to take corporate PAC money is because I don't want to be bought by the corporations. Now, when it comes to the electorate, when it comes to people, I'd rather get votes. And so we've gone into individual donations. But just like that old game, Zach, Pac-Man, it's just, they keep getting it more. Give me that PAC money. And the reason they do that is some candidates, and I'm not going to mention the names, but they do that because it's an easy way to do it. So when Big Pharma writes you a check, you really don't have to do much. And I've been fundraising, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to host little parties and to do it. And sometimes it takes tremendous amount of effort. But when you have someone in Sacramento or Washington, D.C., it's just like this, Zach. And the candidate sort of sleeping at home like this. They don't have to do anything. But they get the money. And that's something I'm not supportive of. I wish everyone in this race would take the pledge. And the pledge would be no corporate PAC money. But the bottom line is, with that, and they'll always say this, it doesn't come with strings. Well, I can tell you this, a max contribution in a primary and general race is $10,000. For primary, it's $5,000. If the money doesn't mean that much to you and you're not going to be influenced by it, all you have to do is say no. But they won't do that because it's sort of, and we're starting to see it a little in this race, it's win at all costs. And it's just something I don't subscribe to.
So you're talking about running a campaign that doesn't have corporate PAC money. Part of that is being on the ground every day. It feels like you can't go 5 minutes without seeing a David Canepa poster. So can you talk to the importance of that?
Look, the best thing to do is to earn people's vote. Earn people's vote. So every morning, Zach, I'll tell you the game plan. Every morning, we're in a city, I'm waving. We have a group of volunteers. Now we have 5 or 6 groups that go out. I'm one of them. And we wave at people. We talk to people. We basically, I walk about 2.5 hours a day, 2 hours a day. door to door, big districts. So when I ran for supervisor, sort of not as much smaller, but this goes all the way from East Palo Alto to San Francisco. And fundraising, Zach, is a big deal. Being on the phones, no one likes to admit that, but being on the phones is a big part of my day, because we have to raise funds. But at the end of the day, it has to be meaningful to me. So meaningful in the sense of I have to go out and meet people, because that's where I get my energy. That's where I get, it gets me excited, and it gets me excited, whether it's listening to people's stories, whether it's just being at BART, whatever it is. And this is what I've always done. And Zach, no pun intended, over the years, been doing this since 2008. The moniker that has been said to me time and time again is, you do a great job working the corners. Now, people may think that in a different way. Zach, in my day, working the corners meant something else than it means today. So the bottom line is, we were working the corners in 2008, but I take that with a positive. I'm glad we do that, because at the end of the day, it makes us feel good. And just, when you knock on someone's door, the experience is good once you get into conversation.
So I know when you're out there, when you're knocking on doors, on some of the flyers that you're putting out, you have a slogan for free 2-year community college. Can you talk more about that policy?
Look, yeah, I was a community college graduate. Every day, I think
Which
about
community
it.
college?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Zach. I went to Skyline Community College, which, Zach, I think we've talked about this before. My grade point average, I think, was a 0.8, Zach. Basically what that means, and how you can earn this distinction of honor, is not going to class. So my first semester, I did not go to class. But once I got that second semester, I was like, you know what? I started getting into it and learning. And one teacher that just had a profound impact on me was Professor Frederick Berry. And he was my speech teacher, extemporaneous speech, all sorts of, different theories on speech. And then from there, I got rolling. And from there, I ended up going to USF. But at Skyline, what it gave me, and I think it gives other students, is a solid foundation for 4-year. And I continue to be involved in the college. For many years, I've been on the Skyline Advisory Council. We've given, the Board of Supervisors has given the community college district $2 million. And so remember, Zach, this isn't a revolutionary idea, community college for all. In 1985, up to 1985, Skyline College was free. This isn't revolutionary. This isn't, something that, is way out there. And so one of the things that I want to do is to, when I get to Congress, is to really look at the nation's junior college system, community college system, and really see what we can do to advocate for that. And for a couple of reasons. There may be students who don't want to go to a 4-year college. There may be students who want to be in respiratory therapy. There may be students who want to get, at the age of 50, 60, reset their skill set for something else. And so I'm always grateful for community college, because it gave me the opportunity to follow a career. And I always think about the opportunity of giving back to community college because of what I've received from Skyline College.
So this is a two-parter. What would you say to some of the more moderate constituents or opponents who might say, that's community college, that's a good idea, but we can't be funding rich kids who go to community college. It can't be for everyone.
Look, I think it should be. I think if people, the access and the gateway to education is extremely, extremely important. And I'll give you an example. And at Kenyatta College, there was a student who I knew. Now he lived in East Palo Alto, but he had a car issue that cost $900. He said, I can't afford to go to community college anymore. I'm just going to get into retail and do all these things. I ended up talking to him and we're able to do that. But here's the deal. Getting back to your point of people who, let's say, live in Hillsborough, or let's say they live in Atherton. I think what we do is it's a level playing field for everyone. And we make sure that we give them community college for free if they choose to. And by doing that, it creates pathways. I mean, I don't know many, and this I'm speaking to myself, many 18 to 19-year-olds who have a clear path of what they may do. There may be some, but we're all exploring. Careers change 6 or 7 times. Make it simple, make it free, make it accessible to everyone. And always remember, with income, people's life situations change. Things change all the time. You could be of affluence, then you could be poor. I mean, life is, Forrest Gump said it best. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, right? So taking that mentality, I think community college for everyone is paramount.
So the second part to this question is on the flip side to progressives who might say community college is important, we need it, but we need to talk about free 4-year college. So what would you have to say to that?
Before we have that conversation, Zach, what I would say is let's cancel all student debt. Let's cancel all student debt. I was a student. It took me, once I got out of USF, it took me about 10 or 12 years. That was my USF tuition to pay back my debt, my tuition. So I think what we have to do is we have to make sure that we uplift people. The problem in the US right now is we're becoming a country of super haves and super have nots. In my lifetime, I've seen the middle class just evaporate. When you have police personnel and fire personnel who can't, these are good jobs, they get paid well, they can't afford to live in the city where they work, we have a problem. Now think about the service workers. Oh my goodness, how do you do that? And so I think the reason we're so lucky here in terms of our educational institutions, right, is because of research, development, but all these things have a cost to them. And a cost meaning when you're doing research and development, whether it's in biotech, the federal government usually fronts money, right? From, whether it's the Institute of Health, all these sort of things. So why don't we, on a 4-year degree, why doesn't the federal government invest and see what we can do, maybe pilot it in doing something that's for 3-year college. A lot of these universities, a lot of these universities are either public or they're nonprofits, right? Nonprofits. So we have to figure out a way to make it work for everyone. We always say in this country, we all start out equally. Well, that may be a myth. But some of us may have advantages because where we live. Some may have advantages, economically, socially. And so what do we do, and what does it say to us, as my US flag is here, what does it say to us as a country if we're not trying to provide equal access to education to all? And so these are the issues that I'm passionate about. These are issues I care about. I've seen in my lifetime, people who they couldn't pay the fees. They couldn't pay the books. And for them, it wasn't because they weren't smarter than anyone else. It had nothing to do with intellect, it had nothing to do with ability. It had to do with their checkbook. And if we're truly that country on the hill, if we're truly that beacon of hope, we truly believe in meritocracy, what we want to do is to make sure that the best and brightest have the opportunities, no matter what your bank account says.
So speaking of debt and equal access, let's jump back to something you said earlier, Medicare for all. Can you expand on that and why you are focusing that for your campaign?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of corporations, Kaiser in particular, Sutter, and then I'll explain in detail where, and the companies, the insurance companies and pharma, they are making record profits, and they're making record profits off us. I was reading something, I think the healthcare industry, and you may want to fact check me on this, is 4% of our GDP. And so here's the deal. If we truly believe in healthcare, if we truly believe in making sure that everyone has access, then we need to have a system where the individual is placed first. And we need to put, and not the companies, not HMOs, not any of that, where they're placed first. And we focus on these pool of people, putting all these people together and creating a system. The VA, a lot of people don't know this. The VA, do you know what the largest medical system in the world, medical provider in the world is in terms of services and members?
Guessing the VA?
It's the VA. So we know what works. We know it. We know. So the VA, which we have one in Fort Miley, the VA is the largest system of healthcare network hospitals. Why can't we do that? Why can't we do something that gives people the dignity they deserve? Instead of people maybe saying, you know what, I don't want to go to the hospital because I'm uninsured. And those things are happening. I don't want to go to the hospital because I don't have health care, and I have this house is the only place I can live in, and I don't want to lose it. Those are choices that are detrimental. Not only do they cause physical issues, but to the mental trauma of that. We live here in San Mateo County, tale of two counties, right? We're the third wealthiest county in the United States. The area that I represent, it's working class people, it's people trying to make it every day. But then you have other areas of affluence. And so at the end of the day, a society that doesn't value healthcare, or doesn't value access to healthcare, and that should be a moral principle, a guidepost, is a society that is just not working for us. And so my hope is to join the Medicare for All caucus once I get to Washington, D.C., to do the work that needs to be done. But this is a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift. I mean, all the special interests and all the groups involved, no one really wants to touch it. There's a lot of money involved in it. But at the end of the day, access to healthcare should be a right, and that's something we're going to fight for.
I think the number that I've seen is between 14 and 17% of our nation's GDP is spent on healthcare. So it is a lot of money.
Yeah, Zach, thank you for clarifying that. I was just off by 10%, which is, and I'd like to say that isn't much, but considering our GDP, that's a lot. But thank you for clarifying that. That was really really good. Zach, I hope you're not running against me for Congress. No, you're not. You're interviewing me, but thanks for that.
I'm a bit too young for that.
No, 25 is the age, I believe, Zach.
So what would you say to some of the more moderate Democrats who say, I like the idea, but it's too much, too fast. We should take it step by step.
We've been trying to take it step by step for a very, very long time. I mean, look what happened when we did the Affordable Care Act. I mean, people were just, they were outraged. It was, divisive politics. It was, we got through it. And so some of these issues, and we got through it in such a way where I believe at the time the Democrats lost the House because of that vote. They were able to get the vote. But all that division, all that, I mean, this is why I'm running for Congress. It's not about playing it safe. It's not about kicking up your feet on the desk and saying, well, I'm just one vote. No, this is about systemic change. This is about dealing with important issues. I remember when I was on the board of supervisors, I am on the board of supervisors, we're dealing with Seton Hospital. We had to vote on at Daly City Hall, and then thereafter at our chambers, we were voting on funding. I didn't have the votes. The votes weren't there, but we kept pushing it, and the community came out. And thankfully for my colleagues, I'm always indebted to them for this and for listening to the community, that we're able to get, $10 million to the county of San Mateo and $10 million through the health plan of San Mateo. And so these are not easy fights. Rome wasn't built in a day, but these are fights that are worth us doing. And remember, in the state of California, they had the opportunity to vote on a transformative health bill. And what did they do?
They didn't even vote on it.
They didn't vote on it. In the state of California, where there's a super majority in the House of Democrats, they didn't even vote on it. Didn't even vote. The governor, they were saying the governor wasn't supportive. So a bill that makes sense. So look, sometimes we say, oh, it's the Republicans. In this case, it was our own Assembly Democrats that kicked the bill out. We didn't even hear the bill. And to me, what courage and fortitude is you vote the bill up or you vote it down. And for them not to hear the bill, that's what makes people angry with elected officials, right? It's like, well, wait a minute here. We're all trying to, you say you support this, but when it comes to the vote, you don't even take the bill up. And so you're right, it's a difficult path, it's a difficult road. But I think what people are sensing is this notion of this divide I'm talking about. And I think what you're starting to see is you're starting to see people, especially people who are middle class or formerly middle class, saying, you know what, my life, my situation, my kid's situation isn't getting better. We need change. And so that's what's the driver of all this.
So when we're looking at the need for change and we're looking at all these bills piling up, medical bills, student debt bills, one of the biggest things that's affecting our county is housing bills, mortgage bills, rent payments. So what will you try to do to fix that situation for the people living here?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the first thing we have to do is the state needs to extend the moratorium, right? We need to make sure, and what the state needs to do, let me take a step back. What the state needs to do is you need to make sure, and I'm hearing a lot about this, in terms of people being able to pay their rent and getting the dollars from the state. There was something that was recently acknowledged where they're having a hard time, whether it's staffing, they're not able to get those dollars, or there's a delay of somewhat. That needs to be figured out right away. And I know Faith in Action, which is a group here in San Mateo County, is really advocating for that. They're advocating for reimbursement. I know the county, we've done that. But here's the deal. Some would say we're still in the pandemic. I would agree with that. Some say we're not. And so I think what we need to do is to make sure that the state comes up with the dollars and making sure that they're able to give folks the resources. Now, we have an ambitious goal in the county, ambitious. We want to get to functional zero homelessness by next year, okay? That is the goal. That is the goal. Now, the reality is we got a lot of work to do, right? So we purchased 4 hotels through Project Home Key. That was through the governor. We're opening up a navigation center. for people who need help, mostly those who are unhoused, trying to get them in temporary housing. And we try to do is to get them in permanent housing. The county works with the cities as well as nonprofit developers to create housing, affordable housing that works for people. What I would do as congressperson, the first thing I would do is I would create our Marshall Bill of Housing, trying to get huge tranches of money to counties, whether it's the counties being the facilitator of it, but really seeing what we can do to identify city, county, transportation, excess, surplus property. Surplus, meaning they own this property, give them the property, then see what we can do at a federal level to give them huge tranches of money, whether it's 100% affordable housing, which is important, very, very important. Whether it's partnering with affordable housing within market rate housing. These are important things, important things to do. And we need to give those, going back to what you're saying, we need to give relief to those who need it.
So you mentioned transportation as well as the actual infrastructure for housing. I think right now there's a push to electrify our current transportation grid, get it off of diesel. Can you talk to the importance of that?
Look, and I'm going to even go even a little bit further, Zach, than that. And I'm going to take it in a different direction. What we've learned through, and I'm old school, but we've learned through remote work, that may be the best solution to greenhouse gases, right? So take, for example, my staff. I have people who live in Daly City, live in San Francisco. They have to drive all the way to work to Redwood City. Okay. Now my district's here. And I remember several years ago, a staff member said to me, this before the pandemic, I do your scheduling, I do all these things. I don't need to be in the office. At the time I said, well, because I was, stuck in my thinking, you have to be there. Well, what have we learned? We've learned that you could do the same things remote working. I was proven wrong. He was able to demonstrate that to me. So really look at, if employers can look at having people work from home, that's a simple solution to greenhouse gases, right? And so I think employers really have to keep that in mind. That includes us, the county, if jobs warrant it, customer service, whatever it is. But to get back to Caltrain, when I was on the board of the Bay Area Air Quality Management District 5 years ago, we gave Caltrain $22 million for the electrification. Now I'm on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We're giving them money for electrification. This is, and no pun intended, the third rail of politics. There is no way, shape, or form should we not have high-speed rail from San Francisco, Salesforce building, Transbay Terminal, all the way to Union Station. They do it in other countries. We should do it here. But the electrification is important. Why? Better than all that diesel. If you've ridden Caltrain, I have to tell you, the diesel and the pollution, unbelievable, unbelievable. The second thing is, you can get trains to move faster if they're electrified. And the third thing is, so you got the environmental benefit. Noise sometimes is an issue for some of the neighbors who live in the area. That would eliminate that. So it's a win-win situation. And thanks to President Biden's Build Back Better plan, we're going to receive a lot of money. But remember, in the pandemic, no one was using public transportation. Systems were being stressed in terms of financially. We were able to receive federal government money to help offset that. Now we're looking for a new day. I was at BART yesterday, as mentioned, and there's a lot of people who are riding public transportation, but we really need to look at better ways to lessen our carbon footprint.
Can you speak more about that and your general climate change plan?
Well, look, I mean, we basically forced our treasurer to divest from oil, and it's an incredible story. So we had a Board of Supervisors meeting, and one of the issues is we're suing these oil companies for sea level rise. But at the same time, in our portfolio, we had holdings of these companies. That makes little or no sense. How can you sue them, but then you hold some of their holdings? And so I voted against the investment policy that invested in oil. Then what ended up happening was 4 or 5 hours later, the treasurer changed their policy, which is great, which is phenomenal. It's fantastic. We got to wean ourselves off of oil. It's probably even become even more apparent what's happening in Russia. So it's I think last time I looked in terms of electric vehicles in the state of California, it's 4%. I've been on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. One of the things that I've always advocated for was diesel free by 2033. That's always been the goal. Hopefully we'll be able to hit it. But these things, like you said, you talked about healthcare. This falls in that bucket. These things, they're going to probably take time, right? They're going to take time. And whenever you change, or when people change their behavior, it's tough, and it takes getting used to. But think about where we were with electric cars years ago, and now we're at Tesla, Leaf. I mean, there's all sorts of brands now. And so I'm optimistic, and I think, I support the Green New Deal. We talk about, the New Deal, obviously, the New Deal was a huge deal, right? In terms of, construction projects, what it meant with Roosevelt and what he was able to do, and we got people working. Why can't we make that same investment in our grid? Why can't we have community parks that work better? Why can't we employ people through a just transition? And so we have to make sure that we fund this appropriately. I think the Green New Deal is just the path forward, making sure when it's Generation Z, millennials, giving people opportunities where the economy may have left some people behind. If you don't have a certain skill set, wouldn't it be great to uplift people through employment at the same time, create policies that are green, and so green infrastructure, bioswales, whatever it is. Those are the sort of things that we want to work on, and that's the future. Remember, Antarctica, I believe is, I read the other day, the heat that they're experiencing is unheard of. So we know that climate change is real. We know that we have to solve this situation. And again, people look to the United States of America to lead. And when we lead, people follow us. And so we always have to remember that. When President Trump pulled away from the Paris Accords, that was disastrous, just disastrous. And so we need to make sure that we stand up, that we have a leader who understands what we have to do to transition from petrol or oil, and really look at solutions for the future. Because if not, the planet's going to continue to warm because of our greenhouse gas use. And remember, it's not just the US, right? It's US, China. These are some of the biggest emitters. And so that's why, buses, whether it's, electric buses, whether it's hydrogen, that's why it's so important. But these things, Zach, they cost money. And so from the federal government, hopefully we can identify monies to address the situation, sea level rise, all those things.
So you brought up Ukraine, and I'm not gonna ask you directly about Ukraine, but I am gonna bring.
I want to answer directly, Zach. So
okay, go
please,
for it.
Please tell me your question. This is an important issue.
So I'll start it with this. President Biden has made the decision to not put US forces into Ukraine. And this is part of a broader push versus pull of how much military engagement, how much to pull back. Jackie Spears has historically been on the side of voting to decrease our military budget, pull back. Would you continue that legacy, or would you chart your own path?
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about Ukraine, because I do think it's extremely important. I do think we are dealing with a madman. I think Vladimir Putin is really done egregious things. He's probably going to go down, or be in jail as a war criminal. We're talking about people like you and I who are just living their daily lives, and then out of nowhere, he builds up his forces, and then he goes into cities and basically is terrorizing and killing people. Who goes in to a country and murders people, especially 300 people at the theater? And that, to me, these are just egregious things. It'd be like us going into Canada or us going into to Mexico. This is just unheard of. I do think, and this is where I disagree with my Republican colleagues and my Democrat colleagues. I do think that he is not focused just solely on the Ukraine. I do not think it's the Ukraine. I think for me, Zach, the red line is Poland. I think no one wants to send their troops to war. I mean, I think in World War II, for the United States, it was an extraordinarily difficult decision. It's human life. Now, what the package was that the economic, social, financial, humanitarian package was the Biden administration did, I think, was good. It was really good, focusing on the Javelin, focusing on different military apparatus to see what we can do to take us out of the war. Now, the one thing that I do support, and many people don't, Zach, is because they think it's going to lead to World War III, and that's the no-fly zone. I do support that. I do think that I believe that Mr. Putin has future ambition. Right now, it seems like the Ukrainians and the Ukrainian forces are pushing back. They seem to be positioned well. But for people just to rain missiles on hospitals and schools and I think they said 10 to 15,000 Russian soldiers have died. That's more than was when they fought in Afghanistan. To me, it's really, really troubling and heartbreaking. And what I said, and I'll say this: we need, as a county, there's 3 million refugees. Can you imagine that in Poland? 3 million refugees. We need to make sure, and President Biden said just yesterday, we're going to take 100,000 of them. Okay. Our county has to take the lead, or one of the lead in the Bay Area. And so where are they all going to come from? You might be wondering. Well, I'm working with Ukrainian nonprofits, probably from Tijuana, Mexico, and some are there. So once they sort of get green lighted by the government, they need to go somewhere. So they'll go to 3 places. The first is they'll go to family, they'll go to friends, and the third thing, and look no different than happened in the 80s with the Civil War in Central America, they'll go to churches. But the county, we should be able to provide housing. We should be able to provide trauma-informed services, mental health services, provide people with food and insecurity. And why do we do this? Why is this so important? Because it's our values. It's us caring for people in need. No different than if we had to go through the same situation, Zach. But the no-fly zone, very, very controversial, very, very controversial. And I think it speaks a little to my politics and who I am, in terms of sometimes I may agree with others, sometimes I won't agree with others. And the reason that's important is because at the end of the day, I'm not owned by the establishment. I'm not coronated. I'm not, I make decisions that I think in concert with, different people and different information that I think is based on sound evidence. And so that's where we're at relative to that.
So I'm going to transition to a little bit of a lighter note
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of lighter note. We're running a little bit short on time, so
Right.
I'll ask you this. It's not political. What is your favorite memory at Skyline College?
My favorite memory, I think I have two of them. My favorite memory, and you're going to laugh at this. Skyline has changed so much, Zach, for the better. You have all those new buildings. But one of my first memories is back in the day, we were in the bookstore, but the bookstore was a portable. The portable was probably the size of a closet. It was just so small. And I was floored by it. I'm like, oh my God, this is where we get our books. And so that's one memory. But the most important memory for me was getting the actual degree from Skyline College. Because you got to remember where I came from, being not a very good student, to where I ended up, and then getting that degree in criminal justice that was sent to me means the world to me. It meant the world to me. It was like, okay, that gave me the springboard. It built confidence, and everything in life. It's momentum. It's confidence. How do you feel? What Skyline gave me was the confidence to then go to USF. If it wasn't for Skyline, we wouldn't be talking here. I wouldn't be here. And I gave up on Skyline when I didn't go to class, and I gave up on myself. But Skyline never gave up on me. I was able to go to classes. I was inspired by teachers, inspired by friends. Now, Zach, I wasn't very good at accounting. I don't know if that's still a mandatory requirement.
Nope.
It's not great.
Lucky for me.
Yeah, and I'm not the accountant guy. I mean, I'm not that sort of, that's not my skill set. But if it wasn't, again, for Dr. Frederick Berry, I don't know where you're at, Dr. Berry, but thank you so much, because he brought me so much confidence going into his class and really being able to thrive, and having a teacher that actually cares about your future success. Money can't buy that. But memories certainly can.
So we're about to wrap up. Is there anything you still want to say or leave the viewers with?
No, look, Zach, you are, as many of us are, we are San Mateo County. We are an area that has tremendous wealth. But at the same time, the reason I'm running for Congress is to not fight for the wealthy, but is to fight for people who are just trying to make it every day. And that goes from everyone. You don't have to be, jobless. I'm talking about a middle class that I've seen in San Mateo County just hollow out, just gone. Houses at $1.4 million, $2.5 million, now $5 million, all these sort of things. I want a county that works for all of us. And again, that's why I'm just focused on those core principles. Medicare for all, community college for all, Green New Deal, very simple concepts, but concepts that are worth fighting for.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. Thank you, Supervisor Canepa. If you guys enjoyed listening to this podcast, we will have more coming up. We will link the other podcasts in the description. Supervisor Canepa, do you want to shout out your social medias, your website, let people know where they can go to find you?
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much. So if you want to go to my website, it's just www.davidcanepa.com, at David Canepa on Twitter, at David Canepa on Instagram, and then go to David Canepa on Facebook and like my page. How about that? I don't even know if anyone uses Facebook anymore, Zach. But please follow me on Instagram, and just appreciate, Zach. Thank you for all your wonderful work, and I appreciate the time today, and go Trojans.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you so much. And if you want more great content from the Skyline View, please go to theskylineview.com. We'll see you next time. Thank you.